The last session of the day, please give it up to Chandrashekhar Vattikuti from InMobi.
Thank you. Audible? Perfect. Good evening, everyone. I'll start with the much cliched joke that speakers usually use before the lunch session. That is, I'm between you and lunch. What gives me confidence is I'm between you and a wretched commute in Bangalore, so I have a low bar to beat. What we're going to do in this session is discuss about the sectoral trends influencing or impacting marketers and how that's changing the role of marketing, that's changing the role of what a CMO is expected to be. Obviously, this is meant for more a C-level audience. The title would kind of give you an impression that this is meant for more a C-level audience. What I've kind of tried to do at the end of the session is possibly tweak it, tweak the narrative to possibly put it in your hands to say if you were an entrepreneur, if you were a data scientist, if you were a product manager, what are the implications for that, for you? Before we get started, something about me. I'll start with my not claim to fame. I don't do angel. I'm not a thought leader. I haven't written a single LinkedIn Medium post. For God's sake, I can't even put together 140 characters of wisdom on Twitter. What I do know is my claim to fame is I hit the leaderboard for one of those stick cricket apps, was there for a glorious 20 seconds on the leaderboard. And I've been building products for donkey's years now. Across advertising, marketing, what I can claim to know is if there is something about advertising, there's something about marketing, I think I know a thing or two. Currently work at InMobi, SVP products out there for a lot of our new initiatives and some of the stuff that we're doing with Microsoft. On that note, let's start with agenda in terms of what we're going to cover in the next 20 minutes, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to set through what typically a marketing discipline is, not spend more than 30 seconds on that because that'd be condescending and insulting your intelligence. But what I will spend a lot of time on is talking about the sectoral trends impacting marketing. I'll spend about 8 to 9 slides discussing why marketing is fundamentally getting a root canal at some level because of disruptive changes that are hitting marketing. And when I'm talking secular trends, don't think of it as in the realm of a year, 2 years. I'm talking about in the realm of 10 years. After that is the meat of the session in terms of all of that sectoral trends culminating in the evolution of a role called a CDO, the implications of that on a marketing role, implications of that for you all in case you're building products, building startups, building teams, or even considering some of these functional roles at some point in time. And then hopefully leave you with some sort of value for your 20, 25 minutes that you'll be spending in this room. Let's start, what is a CMO's primary role? And I will try and keep this very lightweight. A marketer does multiple things, right? Strategy, market research, competitive intel, product placing, pricing, promotion, the 4 Ps, the 7, whatever, all of those abstractions. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a very simple reason to exist. The marketer's only reason to exist is he needs to drive more business outcome. If that business outcome in 99.999% of the cases is more revenue for the firm, the only control metric that he has is he needs to do that within available resources at his disposal, which invariably is a budget at the start of the year, and which is the only control metric that he has from his boss, which invariably is the CEO of a firm. Now, if this is a primary objective of a marketer, what are the sectoral forces that are impacting him, right? One, the fundamental consumer behavior is changing. And it's not, all of you all are consumers, I am a consumer. How we behaved 5 years back is completely distinct from how we behave today. So we touch a couple of those consumer behavior changes and the implications of that on marketing. We'll talk about how digital as a percentage of both marketing and advertising channels is completely changing, right? For example, if you were a marketer 15 years back, and if you're old enough, when Usha had to launch or announce a sewing machine, you would see an ad in Hindu, there would be an amazing copy, there would be amazing illustration. You possibly would stereotype and you will have a nice little lady sitting over there on the sewing machine. You talk about amazing stuff that you could stitch and whatnot. You talk about copy. People don't have the patience. Nowadays, if you look at ads for life insurance companies, the brief is almost like whatever we discussed in that meeting, take the bullet points, put it in the ad copy. That's a kind of change that has happened even in the marketing and the copywriting and the advertising discipline over the years. Digital is kind of one of the reasons for that. We'll also look at why MarTech and AdTech is converging because digital allows that convergence. We'll look at data as the brains behind marketing, and obviously it sounds very cliche. I'll kind of give you some examples of how that data is already playing out as we speak. We'll talk about one very interesting topic, and this topic alone can take an entire day's worth of conference. I don't have that liberty, so I'll touch upon it, but leave you with some thoughts that you can further mull in your mind as you're commuting back home. Last but one, pressure on marketing as a function. I'll share some statistics. It is not a fun function. Demands are increasing, the market, everyone and their uncle. So there are a couple of these functions. If you're in product management, you can relate to this. There are some functions where everyone and their uncle believes that they can do it. So marketing is one of those disciplines. Everyone in a firm believes they can do marketing. Everyone in a firm believes they can do product management. So those are the two functions, and I know it's because I'm in product management, it'll sound very cliche that I'm saying this, but though marketing is definitely a function where everyone believes they can do it better than you. So there is pressure on marketing as a function. There is need for marketing heads to think like enterprise data architects, and this is also a very important nuance. We'll kind of deep dive into all of these trends. Let's start with the first one, which is changing consumer behavior. If you now circle back, and I can see a few people who might be of my age, if you go back to those ads and copies of the 1980s, 1990s, I remember most of the programming that I used to see at that point in time because there was limited choice. You could involve yourself in a certain copy. When you had the Maruti 800 launch, I can remember oogling at that billboard for roughly like 30 minutes, marveling at how amazing it is. Now, I couldn't tell the difference between the 10 or the 15 models that Maruti has out there. I wouldn't even be able to name more than 2 or 3 models that Maruti has out there. Consumers do not have the time to be persuaded. Then that worldview, which was devoid of choice, where you could build an opinion, you could fashion a brand opinion and chisel your brand into the minds of the buyers or minds of the customers, customers just don't have the bloody goddamn time. What has changed is refreshing and building memory structures. It is not a coincidence that 2 of the brands that are there as sponsors are also the brands that are trying to establish development centers and want to entice young software engineers to come work for them. Everything is changed into a construct saying, I remember Flipkart, Big Billion Day, I see someone wearing a Flipkart bike or whatever, wearing a Flipkart bag. That is the role of marketing. It is to create associations across different points in time so that you can keep on reinforcing that top-of-line spend that you're doing. Message comprehension, or like I said, right, Usha, you have a sewing machine, you can be elaborate, you can be articulate, no one has that time anymore. People don't read ad copy. In fact, the only ads that are working, and this is anecdotal evidence, the only ads that are working are the sale promotions ads because people zoom in very quickly into what they want and what is the price that they're getting. So all of those full page ads are actually extremely effective because people zoom in to say, Honor 7C, 5999, this otherwise this retail price is 7,500, boom, I'm going to buy this today afternoon on Amazon. Rational involved viewers has changed into emotional distracted users. Just to give you a sense, an average human being looks at his mobile phone 150 times, and this is not looking at content, this is not WhatsApp, this is not email, just gradually for no fun in life looking at their home screen, either to check out the time or to whatever. I mean, because it's something that hopefully will change, there'll be possibly $1 million check, there'll be a notification announcing whatever, promotion to a C-level position, 150 times a day. Average human being in a day has conscious and subconscious associations with as many as 500 brands. That Toyota Yaris that you're driving behind in traffic, that billboard for Nambiar builders that you're seeing are all conscious and subconscious brand associations. Now, for a marketer, it is all changed into that realm that I cannot create top-of-the-mind recall. That has interesting implications. What has also changed is earlier, if you look at television, you look at print, you look at radio, broadcast mediums. Again, no rocket science, digital has changed that, but digital has fundamentally also what has changed is as digital as a percentage of total media has moved beyond 50%, the sheer amount of data that an advertiser or a marketer now has coming in from his channels has changed the game of how they would look at traditional advertising and marketing as a function. More proof, this is for North America. The black line is a digital ad spend in billions. The white line is percentage of total digital spend. Now, in markets like India, markets like China, this could be slightly different. Digital is still not at the level of 40–50% as it is in North America, but it is a matter of 5 years, it's a matter of 10 years, it will get there. In fact, businesses which didn't exist, for example, 2 years back, Hotstar, which had no revenue from OTT, has suddenly zoomed into rumored to be 200 crores, 250 crores of media business. This is an OTT business that did not exist 2 years back. So it is but natural, and you can see the same trend evolve. China is an equally amazing market where the evolution of digital and how fast it's growing, they might get there to this 50-60% split that North America is in possibly a third of the time that it took North America digital to evolve. The other interesting tenet that is impacting marketers in a good way is traditionally media buying was extremely manual. You would go to an agency, say, here is an IO, I want to launch a new car, can you create some awareness? All of that, at least in markets like North America, the black line talks about the programmatic spend in that market. Programmatic spend, obviously search is something that most of you all can relate, billions of auctions, you run a keyword, people bid on that keyword, extremely programmatic in that sense. This programmatic is referring to display advertising, an ad, you fire up a mobile web page, you fire up possibly, say, Hindu, it creates fans of that ad request to possibly 5 exchanges. There are possibly 300 or 400 or DSPs sitting at the other side bidding on that impression in real time, and possibly to the extent of 10 billion auctions running on most mid-size exchanges at any given point in time. You run those auctions, you decide the winner, you serve that ad. So literally think of the copious amounts of data being generated, and what was a very manual, here is an IO, I will raise an IO, I will send you a fax, you confirm the creative. 3 or 4 weeks of activation has shifted down to possibly 1 week, deciding I want to launch an announcement I want to announce the car next week. Here is my creative. Within a week you are set up, you're already buying at scale. Implications for advertising and marketing. Now what does this do? If you look at the trend, digital is increasing as a part of total media and advertising spends. Digital is getting more automated. Now, what does the implication mean? Which means that traditional point solutions on the left-hand side, which is your point solutions around advertising, marketing, and the integrated advertising marketing clouds from the established Fortune 500 companies like Adobe, Salesforce, IBM, Oracle, you name it, everyone is now using either organic product development or inorganic ways through acquisitions to kind of merge that gap between advertising and marketing. For example, earlier, a marketer would say, oh, there is a customer, he hasn't come back in a month, let me send him an email. Today, platforms are there where you don't have to decide whether you want to send an email, you want to have an SMS, or you want to show him an ad on Facebook. Platforms are making that decision-making seamless. What you need to preserve or prescribe to the platforms is possibly just a goal. Don't exceed this customer acquisition cost. Between that, I don't care which channel you use as long as you don't piss off the user. And it's already playing out. If you look at convergence, right, I mean, we tend to oversimplify convergence. Convergence needs to happen, unless it's a disruptive thing like, say, on Uber, where you take existing business models and completely upend them. Convergence needs to play out both in business processes and business org structures. It also needs to be supplemented by tools and platforms that evolve at the same pace, or possibly lead that convergence. And you're seeing that convergence happening in tools. The next trend, or the fourth macro trend, is data as a bedrock of marketing, and it's motherhood and apple pie. I mean, you can imagine the entire advertising ecosystem in Europe started collapsing because of GDPR. No data, don't know what advertising to buy, don't know whom to target, don't know what data you can use. If you get sued, it's 20% of your profits or 4% of revenue. It's too much of a risk. Let's shut down the business in Europe. And data literally is the oxygen on which all of the advertising and the marketing industry is currently running. Consumer businesses, if you look at it, and if you're in product, and if you don't read Ben Thompson, I might have to judge you. Or let me qualify that. If you've been in product for more than 5 years and you don't read Ben Thompson, I might have to judge you. Ben Thompson has this amazing ability to synthesize complex topics and just put it very succinctly, right? What is Facebook? Facebook is a consumer data factory. Nothing else. Don't get me wrong, Facebook is a consumer data factory. Every time you're using WhatsApp, every time you're posting, Instagramming something, every time you're possibly using Facebook, you're leaving tons and tons of data behind to let Facebook know what is the right ad that it should serve you. That's another trend. This gentleman, Navteet Sarna, I'm sure he's a very eminent individual. He's our ambassador to North America. And in case you're wondering why suddenly in a reference to marketing you have an ambassador to North America, 2016, I have the good fortune of working with some really smart colleagues at work. we were having this intense debate. And in 2016, we had predicted that the day of having ambassadors to tech companies will come because tech companies are now more powerful than nation states. That was a discussion that I very vividly remember in 2016. Kasper Kling is Denmark's ambassador to Silicon Valley companies. Appointed in 2017, Singapore is another progressive country that's done the same. It is but a matter of time that all of the large companies, FANG and specifically, will get dedicated ambassadors from most countries. In fact, this whole trend is pointing to a nation state. Say, look at the segue, right? Digital creates data. Data is the oxygen that powers advertising and marketing. Who has the most data in the world? At least outside of China, it is FANG. In China, it is the same BAT trilogy. You have Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent. Now you have possibly Toutiao, ByteDance, because of its widely successful apps. Now, within those 8 firms, they control more data about the population of this world than most governments have. Just imagine the consequences of a statement like that, right? I'll leave you with this thought. This is no different. What you have on the left-hand side is heads of state, and I'm not making a political statement, right? It could have been anyone. You have heads of state on the left-hand side. You have heads of data nation states on the right-hand side. No difference. No difference. And you can judge the importance of these companies and how they look at data when you have instances where companies don't have country GMs for a market like India, but the first person they hire is a policy guy who can liaise with the government. When you see that R.S. Sharma and you see our digital IT minister having meetings, say, a Zuckerberg or meeting Sundar Pichai, that is no different from Modi meeting Merkel in Germany. Exactly no difference because those firms are sitting on copious amounts of data. And maybe as a slight detour, in the context of marketing, now imagine, you are a marketer, your oxygen is data, and guess what? 70% of that data goes into Facebook and Google but never comes out because it's a walled garden. Now imagine the implications of marketing. The left-hand side is a very popular Time cover. Hateful human, maybe let's start with a simple pop question, right? How many of y'all, and this is a non-controversial question, so you can be completely honest when you're answering this. How many of y'all have sent a WhatsApp message, bought something on an e-commerce site, or possibly used public email services in the last 1 week? If I could have a show of hands. Congratulations, you are a data product. Very cute product, very obedient, nicely seated in chairs. I know I'm dehumanizing you, but trust me, you are a row in a Cassandra database or a MySQL database in some data center in the world, period. And every footprint, every time you use Google, every time you use Facebook, and it's gone to an extreme level where I can bet my money and almost like bet my personal wealth that 5% of y'all who are on Android are possibly now using apps which are listening in the background to this conversation and you don't even know about it. That's the state of data, and at some level, we also have very strong opinions about this and the fact that India as a country is losing that data war and not creating, I would say, strength or positions of strength for its citizens because all of that data is sitting in data servers outside this country. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. The good thing is, the note that you see on the right is the Justice Sri Krishna Committee report on privacy policy for Indian citizens. GDPR set the trend. California privacy bill is absolutely going to destroy a lot of businesses in North America in the next year, 2 years, if they allow it to pass. The Sri Krishna report is an amazing report, very progressive. It's actually very reassuring that Indian privacy policy or policy experts are now starting to kind of set the tone that GDPR had established for us. But don't mistake it as a marketer. When you put yourselves in the shoes of the marketer, your data is your oxygen, and now you have this entire ecosystem changing on you. Coupled with that, everyone, like I said, everyone believes that they can run marketing. The average tenure of a CEO is 7 years. The average tenure of a CFO is 6 years or thereabouts. The average tenure of a CMO is 34 months, or roughly say, just shade less than 3 years. So in an average tenure of a CEO is flipped through 2.5 CMOs. And I'm not, obviously, this is not looking like a great vote of confidence. If you're a marketer in this room, don't kill me, I'm just stating the facts. Why is this the case, right? What's also happening is marketing stacks are getting extremely complicated. So this is a marketing stack from a marketing conference called MartechConf. Like SaaStr is for SaaS companies, this is, they conduct an event where they ask companies to send in their marketing stacks. This is one company's marketing stack. If you look at all the marketing activities on the left, and all of the logos are the products/services that that one company uses to fulfill its marketing roles, right? This is what Cisco's marketing stack looked in 2017, and this is what it looks like in 2018. So suddenly, you are now expecting CMOs to almost operate like enterprise data architects. Where is the data being originated? Oh, there is an event management platform like Cvent, which captures all the leads generated at NPC. How do I ensure that it flows into my CRM? If it's a B2B CRM, it's a different thing. If it's a B2C CRM, it's a different thing. You are forcing a CMO to now start talking like a CTO. And this is our observation from multiple conversations with CMOs. Your marketing stacks today are lossy on customer data, and literally you might have deployed 6 different SaaS solutions, spend 8 months integrating them. Possibly by that time, the CMOs got fired, and you are back to square one. So this is what is happening from secular trends for a marketer, right? And which is why firms are now saying, we need a separate role. We need someone who's responsible for data assets within the company. Let's call it a CDO. Invariably, those roles overlap the most with a marketer. Expecting a marketer to be that savvy is almost equivalent of saying he needs to be a Greek god or a Greek goddess. And when you have a Greek god or a Greek goddess run marketing, the natural question is, why shouldn't I be the CEO rather than a CMO? Interesting trends. This is what is happening, and literally from an opportunity. And that was the premise, that was the context for establishing the whole evolution of the CDO role and why marketers, or marketing as a discipline, is going to get completely upended over the next 5 to 10 years. The opportunity for y'all. Just to quote, MuleSoft is a company that builds amazing enterprise adapters that help data move from one system to the other. They built enterprise adapters and integration tools for almost most SaaS products or most enterprise products in the world, acquired by Salesforce for $6.5 billion. Datorama, which is a fairly, intuitively, it's a very simple thing, right? You're a marketer, so you're spending across 30 channels. What Datorama does is pulls all of that data in and optimizes and tells you, by the way, you're spending on these 18 channels. They don't seem to be generating returns for you. You should now double down on channel 8, 13, and 14. And decrease spends in the other channels. Acquired for $800 million, rumored to be 40 times revenue. And we're not talking profit, we're not at 40 times revenue. So there is insane, and marketing as a function is now starting to control anywhere from 2% to, in some cases, as high as 10% of revenue as a budget. So if you're looking for an enterprise class or a function that has the most appetite to spend, that is possibly the most insecure, it doesn't get better than marketing. Last 2 slides. The premise or change in marketing is also that simply marketing is moving into 3 simple Ds, right? You need all the data, all the customer data, all touch points, all products, all of that data being aggregated at one place. When you have structured data, what you'll realize is, what do human beings do in marketing, right? You bid on a few keywords, let's say Google marketing. You bid on a few keywords, you possibly decide that some keywords are delivering results, some keywords are not. That is decisioning. Now, if AI ML stacks can get you to 80-85% deliver, or 80-85% performance, versus an average human being can deliver 60-65% campaign performance, do you think that human beings' job will exist beyond 10 years or 5 years? Lethargy, yes. But after 5 or 10 years, if you're a competitive firm and you're trying to lead the pack, that role won't exist. Distribution is purely plumbing, ensuring you can send emails, you can do WeChat integration in China, you can do WhatsApp integration in India. Trust me, if you try to bring US notions that I will do only email and not do SMS, I won't do push notifications, or more simply, I won't do WhatsApp integration, you can kiss your chances goodbye of working in a market like India. In fact, I would say in India, you do WhatsApp integration well, you're done. Implications for you all. We can possibly take this offline because I believe my time's up, but very interesting implications. If you're an entrepreneur, this is a great time to focus on marketing and advertising as a problem area, truckloads of money, sustained spending year after year, and guess what? Brands will never, it is more difficult to create brands than ever. And brands and companies know that brands are a source of sustainable advantage. So that spending pattern is not going to go away unless there is a recession. Spending pattern is not going to go away. Marketers have challenges. They have insecurities in life. Data is becoming the bedrock of that decisioning. So if there is a good time to start something, this is about the right time. If you're a data scientist, trust me, Sources of data, homogeneous data, data at scale, it doesn't get better than advertising and marketing. If you have a decent firm that does even 5 million, 10 million of spending, the amount of data that you have to play around with and clean data that you have to play around with is just unparalleled. If you're a marketer, my sympathy is with you. I also work in the marketing and advertising space. You need to run at 300 miles per hour to stay exactly where you are. That's the nature of the beast, and that's the pace of evolution that marketing and advertising stacks are seeing. In summary, this is what we did. We discussed the secular trends. We did a deep dive in each of those secular trends. I kind of painted a picture on why a data-centric marketer is possibly going to become the new beast of marketing, or new form of marketing in a few years from now. That beast called data-centric marketer is invariably being called a CDO now. And hopefully in that last slide, I left you with a few ideas of the implications for you all. On that note, thank you. And I don't believe we have Q&A, but yeah, I will defer to you all.
We can open the floor up for some questions.
Sure.
A couple of them, yeah.
Sure. That's awkward.
I think everybody's tired here, the last session. But yeah, we have a question, yes.
Yeah, so you were talking about data and how it's evolving in terms of what a marketer is looking at. So how do you see the tech stack, especially the search and the content, impacting all these things? Is it just search and content? In the next 10 years, is it going to be something different? Because there's abundance of things which is happening. Like you said, the attention deficit which is happening, right? So how do you see in a market like India, with WhatsApp and so much of, is it noise or is it something meaningful?
So if I've understood your question right, let me kind of summarize my understanding so that you can let me know whether that's the question you had in mind. If your question is search and content the primary content vehicle for a market like India, and do I expect that to continue, say,
Yes.
for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
I would say yes, but not content as we think of it, right? I'll give you the product manager bias answer, right? When I think content, I'm thinking Pocket and my 6,000 odd articles sitting in Pocket. I'm thinking TechCrunch, whatever, Tech Meme, all of that stuff. Content for India, the true content for India, is more a bit like what, say, ShareChat is seeing, is more a bit like what TikTok is seeing. It is actually mind-numbing to see the amount of video content that the most internal parts of India is now creating and uploading onto TikTok. It is, in fact, that's become a favorite pastime now. Whenever we have free time, we open up TikTok and just marvel at the amount of video content that people in Jabalpur are creating, for that fact. So will content be relevant? Absolutely, yes. ShareChat is killing it in terms of growth numbers. Our own consumer property is already at a scale which would make it the second largest news app, and no one even knows about it, right? Content will be very important because you have data, you have phone, you have free time, content is not going away. The form of content as we are exposed to as professionals, that we read, email, stuff, trust me, it takes that discipline to take a bike, travel 60 kilometers for Gurgaon, and what you see over there is content. What you see as possibly 25 kilometers from a place called Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh, that content is what will definitely prevail. And trust me, WhatsApp, some of these channels, in India, if you don't get those channels right, if anyone came and told you, don't do WeChat, don't do WhatsApp, they're smoking dope, and I want the name of that either.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
So it is good that you brought up the point on TikTok. So that was one of the things that I wanted to set up with. The regional content gaining more and more precedence, and the next 300, 400 million consumers going to come from that domain. How does advertising change in that respect, with regional content and regional language being the prime focus? That is one question. Sure. The other quick question was, how does blockchain change the metrics and dynamics of the ad industry? So just these two questions on my mind.
So to the first one, if you break up, and this is my early 30 seconds processed view, right? I mean, if I thought about it 30 minutes, 40 minutes, my answer might be a bit more cogent, so please discount it for what it's worth. If you look at content and you break up advertising into discrete building blocks, right? There's creative, there's value proposition in terms of landing page, what is the message you want to communicate, there is targeting, and there is a few other attributes, right? Now, what vernacular does is, if you approach it smartly, vernacular can actually become a force amplifier, or focusing on vernacular can become a force amplifier. For example, it depends on how you do it, right? If you had to convert a creative into, say, 15 languages in India and throw people at it, which is our normal intuition in India, you can possibly do it for the first 5 languages, which give you 70% population reach, but it is a painful thing. Versus if you apply technology, and you possibly tweaked Facebook's own, Facebook just open sourced a variant of language translation services. If you applied your own layers of intelligence and now allowed a brand to seamlessly explode English language content and creators, which is 99.99% of their creative pool, and explode that to something that covers 98% of the non-English speaking population, you're golden. So I would say there is insane upside potential in making it vernacular. I'll just give you, and this is true across Google, this is true for our platform at InMobi. We apply a very English-first mindset to most platforms. For example, we ran English language surveys in Indonesia, a certain response rate. You convert it into Indonesian translation, absolutely killer conversion rates. And Indonesia is like 150, 200 million Android handsets, right? I mean, it's almost India scale. It's slightly more mature from an ecosystem perspective because there are profitable unicorns over there and not many profitable unicorns over here. But local vernacular advertising, if your question is there upside, absolutely absolutely amazing upside. What is interesting is the goalpost is changing. For example, before people could wrap their heads around WhatsApp, you now have shared chat. Shared chat and WhatsApp is not a fair comparison. WhatsApp is 1,000 times bigger. But TikTok, I mean, who would have assumed that they suddenly would be the number 4th largest app in the world? And it's insane. I mean, if you have time, just as a product manager, you just play around with that app. You have weird content. Don't judge me for me making the recommendation of that app. It has weird content, but it is, trust me, everyone outside of this world is using it. Outside of Bangalore is using it.
It's still addictive.
Huh? It is.
It takes time away.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and to your, that's a first answer. So vernacular can become an acceleration, and marketing will win not by trying to do better at English marketing, right? At least in India, you get better at vernacular, suddenly you have solved it for the next, whatever, 200 million, 300 million Android handsets. Like every big billion day is another 20 million handsets entering the market. To your second question on blockchain, I think we are trying a couple of experiments with Microsoft to apply blockchain to the advertising stack. I know a lot of other firms are trying to apply blockchain in very disruptive ways. For example, that talk about data nation states, Facebook, Google having that. There are firms that are saying us as consumers should be able to put that data out there, put in some ledger, and then allow firms to say, oh, I want to understand whether the Chandra is in the market for a car. I go state I'm in the market for a car. And ideally, that money should come to me. Advertiser is getting a captive audience. He's getting someone who's actually in the market for buying a car. Why should that money go to a Google and enrich someone else, rather give it to the consumer?
Actual disintermediation.
Absolutely. So there are, the only challenges, some of these are still pilots. The next 3 or 4 years couldn't be more exciting. I mean, literally, if anyone cracks, or it won't be one person, any set of firms that crack this economic value flow from one entity to the other and put that in the hands of consumers like us, you're talking about the next 100 billion company. So experiments are on, but it's early days.
So I think we'll have to wrap there. Chandrashekhar, thank you so much.